Mrs. Boynton, Mr. Akins,
Here.
Mrs. Turner Birch, Mr. Lipford,
Here.
Mrs. Macklin.
Here.
May we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Visitors are always welcome at our board meetings. If you wish to address the board, please complete the form provided upon arrival at the meeting and give it to the treasurer. Oral presentations are limited to 3 minutes each. So that the meeting may proceed uninterrupted, please silence all electronic devices.
Okay. Section 2.01, acknowledgement of goals for one plan goals. Please read them at your leisure. Section 3, awards, presentations, and communications. We have a presentation from Bedford High School from Ms. Lewis and team.
Good evening, everyone. We do have a short presentation. We just want to kind of outline some of the things that we've done really well over the past year, and we're continuing on this year. We know we are on a time constraint, so we will keep to our time and just brag a little bit about what's going on at Bedford High School. You can read these all at your leisure as well. I know everybody talks about the tagline, so I will not read these to you. This is just our team. So I am the head principal. We have Mrs. Gowing, who is still over A to F. Mrs. Dillard, who is our G to N, Mrs. Brown, who is our O to Z principal, and then we have the addition of Mr. Six, who the board has been so gracious to allow us to have another administrator in the building, and he has been an awesome addition to our team. These are the District 1 plan goals. I know you already kind of reviewed them and told people to read them at their leisure. Again, we know that there's a focus on reading, math, as well as graduation, and our community engagement. Our goals that you will see when we go over them later on directly align with the district goals. Shifting mindset. So this is something that we've done a really good job as a team at the high school. We've shifted mindsets of our parents, our students, as well as our teachers, and we've done those all together. We have been really big on accountability. That was our word last year. Accountability for our community, accountability for our students, our teachers, as well as the administrative team. We talked extensively in a staff meeting just about what accountability looks like on all parts. And this year we've added the addition of the equity. Equity, making sure that we are having equitable practices amongst the school to serve our students and our community are very important. So I'll let Mrs. Dillard talk a little bit about what she's been doing in our staff meetings monthly.
So we have had a focus with our staff. They talk about I'm a little soft-spoken. So we have had a chance to work with our staff around equity. And what we've been working on so far is talking with our staff first about some of the inequities that our students face. And we have done that through looking at some data around that. And then we also have worked with our staff about how equity sometimes has a tendency to get uncomfortable. So as we look at changing and shifting some of our practices within the building to make sure that all of our students are able to reach success, sometimes as we change those practices, we have to make sure that we are able to look within ourselves and make sure that we are able to get uncomfortable as we change those practices. So we have had some uncomfortable conversations with our staff, and we've had them practicing having those uncomfortable conversations with each other. And then we've taken them through some scenarios doing that so that they can get used to what true equity looks like in an educational setting.
We obviously wanted to talk a little bit just about our discipline data. Again, this is one of our building goals as well, is to decrease our offenses. So I know last year we had a drastic drop in our incidences that were occurring around the building. And we can equate that to our administrative team as well as our teacher leaders and just the community within the school. Our security had a big effect on just the culture around the building. So this year you'll see that things are kind of the same, and I believe that this speaks to just our ability to maintain. So it wasn't like you were going to see this drop and then we were going to spike again. This truly speaks to just this is what it looks like. So everything is pretty even. There are a couple more referrals, and that's just because our teachers, again, are holding our students accountable in regards to tardies. We have a lot of tardies. That's one of our biggest offenses at the high school is being tardy to school and tardy to class. So any of the inflations that you see are typically due to that. But again, this just speaks volumes on our ability to maintain our culture. This is not something that's going away. This is what we are doing here at Bedford High School. On the same token, graduation data. So I know on our state report card, we have a 2 out of 5 because of our graduation rate. We understand that our graduation rate has room to grow, but we did grow it 10%. We are now sitting at 88.6%, but we are absolutely not satisfied with that. Our goal is to be a 4-star on our next report card, and I believe that you will see that with just some of the things that we're doing, and we'll speak to that a little later in the presentation. What's happening next? So a big thing that we talked about is, again, to make that true shift that we're trying to make, it's all about community engagement. It's about bringing the parents and the community back into the school. With COVID, we took a big hit just with, being able to get back sociable. Even our students, you can see that we are starting to see that taper off. So we try to do, or we are trying to have events at the school that bring our parents in. We just had conferences 2 weeks ago, well, this week and last week, and again, we offered the in-person option. So there was a virtual option to our parents, again, being equitable, but we did offer that in person. I think we saw a huge increase in our parents that were coming into the building this week. So another event that we started it last year. We pulled it off when Mrs. Diller came up to the high school. We didn't have as much time as we would like to plan, but we pulled it off, and we had about 50 or so parents come in and go to classes with their students during the day. It was an awesome event. We took that time to talk a lot about expectations. We gathered them in the auditorium, talked about expectations, talked about graduation, talked about our goals, and then we allowed them to actually see the day-to-day. We have absolutely nothing to hide. We're not perfect, but we are growing, we are gaining, and you'll continue to see that. So I'll let Mrs. Birch just talk again about our next one that's coming up, and hopefully you guys can come.
I just want to pump us up a little bit. We had 73 parents that we had, and so we are hoping to add just a few more to that. Some of the feedback that we got was to have it a little bit earlier in the year, so we are adding that to November 3rd, and then we hope to have a couple more throughout the school year this year. So we are having our first one November 3rd. Last year we had a morning and an afternoon session to accommodate parents, so we are going to continue that this year. And we welcome all parents and guardians, so it's Bring Your Parent to School Day, but we welcome everyone. And then we always have a informative session so that we can inform parents on graduation requirements. We do light refreshments, and then we do a couple of giveaways. We usually ask some questions about graduation requirements and a couple other fun things that go on at the high school, and then we do some giveaways when parents answer the questions correctly.
Again, Mrs. Gowing is like our big data person, so she's like, don't forget to say that we had over 900 people at open house. Open house was huge for us. We had over 900 people walk through the door for open house. Mrs. Brown will talk a little later too about freshman orientation. Mrs. Gowing was right there tallying, and when she had to go in, she gave her tally to somebody else because we want to see what we're doing, and we want to see and make sure, I know Dr. Johnson talks a lot about inspect what you expect. And so, again, if this is what we want to see happen, we've got to inspect it and make sure that it's actually happening. Mr. Six is a champ. He would like to speak today and talk about PBIS.
Good evening. Being new to the district, I'll let my colleagues talk about some of the other things. For me, though, an outsider coming in, I was excited to see that Bedford was way ahead of the curve on PBIS initiatives. As maybe you probably know, it's a requirement by the state of Ohio, as indicated on our report card. I know other districts are still way behind. So to see signage, to see that culture shift already in place was awesome. As part of planning and steering committees in my old district, so I was able to actually look at some of these PBIS initiatives and kind of run with what Bedford already had. So from what I saw is we were clearly already communicating the expectations to students. We We have staff buy-in, we have teachers running PBIS recognitions, both staff and students. It's communicated through weekly bulletins, through ROAR. The signage, I think, is working. Just expectations in the cafeteria. We are trying it's basic stuff that you can do at home with PBIS with these kids sometimes. So to see the cafeteria is getting cleaner and cleaner every day, some of these initiatives are working just at that really minute level. But I think also that culture, that shifting culture, it's that holistic approach that maybe something in there will help that graduation rate and ultimately help our overall goal.
Our next step with PBIS, Ms. Brown just reminded me, is opening our ROAR store. So that's our next step for our students to have that in place. I'll bring Ms. Data.
So we have a saying at the high school that all data is good data. So even if Ms. Lewis doesn't like the data that she's seeing sometimes, we say that because data guides all of our decision-making process. So what you see on this slide right here is our achievement data from last spring, students who sat for these subject area tests for the first time. And you see the percentage of students who met proficiency, and that is scoring a 700 or higher on that state assessment. Now, some of these areas, we know we have a lot of room to grow, especially in our math. And we're doing that work through new curriculum with increased instructional rounds, mock testing, diving into data analysis with our teachers to see that we are focusing our instruction on areas where students really do need to grow. At the bottom of the slide, you will see what's called the competency. So the school's goal is for students to reach proficiency or higher. For two of the tests, the graduation goal for the students is the competency score of a 684. So for our Algebra 1, we actually had 52% of our students meet their graduation requirement the first time they sat for the test, and our ELA 2, 63% met their graduation requirement the first time they sat for the test last year. So you can see that those percentages are significantly higher than the proficiency. Like I said, we have a number of interventions that we're implementing this week. Another thing that our ELA 2 team is diving into quite a bit is modeling any kind of instruction that is occurring in the classroom, whether they're working in a Socratic seminar or they're utilizing a graphic organizer or maybe they're doing some written responses. They also want to show what that topic looks like on the assessment. So they are doing a lot of writing that mimics the assessment, but also they're doing some practice multiple choice questions that will address things like theme or characterization or how one author might view another author. So they're modeling those testing questions for the students daily. Now, that was our achievement data. What you see on this slide is our progress data, and this is how we are growing the students. So this compares the students' test in high school to how they scored on that same subject area test in middle school. So while we did not necessarily compared to proficiency scores from the year before, we saw some minor drops in a couple of subject areas. You actually see on this slide that we grew students when comparing to their middle school tests. So in 3 subject areas, we grew students significantly beyond what the goal was set by the state. We have a couple of tests where they met the goal or were slightly below the goal, and then we had 1 subject area where the students did not meet the growth expectations, and that was in American history. However, when we compared their scores to how students scored the year before, we actually made about a 10% gain in that area. So that is our progress data that you will see on the state report card. Thank you.
And quickly, because we're already over our time, we want to get to our video and talk about Link Crew too. But just with our Title I funding, I think we've done a really good job of just allocating funds to assist with our students' success. One of those things that we're going to do is we're going to continue Blitz Days, and that's when we're intentional about students who are within 10 points of getting that proficient score. We target those students and provide interventions the week before the test, or the month before the test, I'm sorry, is when they start. We also have looked and allocated funds for our co-teaching. Our co-teaching model is awesome, and we think that we can co-teach, co-plan, and co-serve our students. So we're allocating funds to make sure our teachers are properly trained in that so that our students can benefit from that success, as well as Dr. Johnson kicking it off in the district with Dr. Glover. We appreciate that. Dr. Glover is coming and just talking about our cultural responsiveness. So we're doing a lot of work. We're going to do work with our trauma-informed PD for our students as well, because again, all of these things need to happen in order for our students to have true success. I will not go over the goals again. I know we kind of already talked about them. So again, we have our reading goal that we obviously are focused on, as well as the district. We have our math goal, and we also have, again, that community engagement piece, as well as our graduation goal.
Just want to quickly thank the board for a couple of our new clubs that we were able to bring to the campus.
These are awesome clubs. Again, we all know that any students that are involved in something do well. So again, we appreciate the board for approving our Gay Straight Alliance, as well as our American Sign Language Club and our Enviro Club. So this is another thing that's new at Bedford High School. I know that the district's plan is for CTE to come back into the building. So right now, we've already done this with job training. We used to send our students out. Our students now remain in-house, and they are working with Kim Natali, who is coming to our district. She does an awesome, awesome job of training our students up, making sure that they are ready to go out in the workforce, and to have that independent living life. It's that transitional piece for that. They work a lot in-house in our community resource room. They work with our tech department. They're doing a lot of cool things that are within the building, but we also have partnerships that are outside within the community that the students will travel to as well. And I will let Ms. Brown talk about Link Crew. And again, thank you to the board and Dr. Johnson for bringing that into the district as well.
All right, good evening. So first of all, Link Crew is a fun activity. It's a way of bridging the gap between our 8th and our 9th graders coming into the building. So what happens is when our freshmen come in, they may be a little scared, a little apprehensive, but what we do is our goal is to make them comfortable and to let them know that they can succeed while at BHS. So what we do is, as coordinators, there's 2 teachers, 2 counselors, and myself as an admin. And what we do, we take the time, we train, we also have these mentors, and the mentors are our juniors and seniors. And then they come along and actually, once they get trained, they come along and they help out our freshmen. We had a fun-filled day on August 22nd, which was what we considered our opening day. And they came in, we had music playing, food, candy, and then they also broke off into group training where they were with the freshmen and they took them into different classrooms and they just kind of walked through what BHS is. They took them on tours and they became their personal mentor for the entire year. So then we meet as coordinators, as a group, so we can prepare activities along with the mentors so they can be like, all right, well, we want to make sure that they're having ongoing activities. So they have an activity every quarter. So the first one that's coming up will be about grades and the transition, how they're doing, what they're doing, and so on and so forth. And we also got testimonials from teachers that got a chance to witness this Link Crew on August 22nd, and it was a great day for everyone, and I just can't wait for the rest of the year.
Of course, we have to make her over Link Crew. You see her energy. So freshmen need that. That is her all day, every day. I know she's tired when she gets home because that literally is her all day. So we wanted you guys to really leave with this. We have a couple testimonial videos from our students as well as some of our teachers within the building, and we want to leave you with this on why BHS is a great place.
What makes BHS a great place? What makes BHS great is more students showing up to school events and having tons of school spirit. amongst it all. The admin is the reason why I chose this school out of all the other schools, because I know what it's like to not have support, and I do not feel that here. I feel like we are truly considered and cared about and listened to, and I feel proud of every little movement of progress that we make here, and I love it every single day.
What I like about the high school is that you can be yourself, you can express yourself. There's always a friend or a teacher that can support you, and just like push you.
BHS is a great place because of the kids that we serve and the support that we have from our administrative team. We have incredible students. They are smart, they are savvy, they are gritty, and because we have the support from our team to form these great relationships with these smart, savvy, gritty students, we are able to really push them to the next level. We all spend a lot of time and energy making sure that our students are prepared for whatever comes next. We spend a lot of time developing plans with our students to make sure that there is a plan for post-BHS, and we work really hard to use those relationships and use the support from our team in order to make that happen.
Some things that make BHS a great place is athletics and the academics. The environment is wonderful, and with the athletics, we can do so much and achieve so much more outside of high school, and it's just a wonderful place to be.
BHS has always been home for me. The district, I've had a stepson, a nephew, and my daughter come through this district, and actually I came through the district until I went to Chanel, but I still think of Bedford as home. I live in the community, I'm a parent, so this is home. It's always been home, forever will be home. I'm proud to be a part of the BHS community, now as an employee, not just a community member or a parent. Just excited to touch the students' lives in a different way. Just seeing them smile and kind of get that aha moment, and with bringing the cooking program back, and just the excitement that's around it makes me really excited. So that's why I love BHS.
So that is our presentation.
Well, I just want to state that I'm very proud to see that you guys are moving in the right direction with everything, and I'm a data person as well, and I love how you're not settling on current data, that you look at it and see that you definitely want to improve. And I'm really proud that you guys have that American Sign Language Club, because I think that's amazing. My son's actually taking American Sign Language as a freshman, and he was even teaching me some stuff, so I see that that's he loves it, and I know I would love to learn it as well, so good job.
Thank you.
One of the things that stick out is so key is the support. We definitely feel it's a supportive space. And I would have to agree with that, and even more so with the new activities. I mean, being able to add a space for an LGBTQ+A student is amazing. So even a lot they've been asking for it is here. Environment, we're talking about preparing students for the future citizens. Climate change is important. It's upon us. So to even have a space for them to operate in that, including, when you're talking about inclusion and what inclusion looks like, having other languages, and bringing forth, and then here they did the whole video and sign that it just brings everyone in the community to a space, because we do have a deaf community here. So I'm grateful for the things that I'm seeing that you all are executing in the space. Thank you.
I would, the presentation, I said, all of you guys' presentations, individual comments, that I appreciate the teamwork. And I think we are able to witness from you guys as leaders, and that will, I think that kids pick up on that when adults are together and working together, and they see the power of that teamwork. And I just appreciate your dedication, commitment. I think that will inevitably produce success. So, yeah, continue to work together. You do a great job. I love that the young lady said school is comforting. It's an interesting word for anywhere at this point in the world. So, kudos to you guys for that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, our next section is audience participation. Do you have any? We have a comment from a resident, Lashnita Devi, regarding policy 8450, communication with parents within the school district.
Good evening. I've prepared a written statement so that I'm not taking up too much of this time. Okay. Good evening. My name is Lashnita DeVise, and I am a parent here in the Bedford School District, as well as a registered nurse for 10 years. I am here this evening to raise a major concern that occurred within our school district this past week in one of our grade school buildings, and to find out how to move forward with the solution to prevent this type of incident from happening in the future. On Tuesday morning, I received a phone call to pick up my child from school because of the unknown rash that had been identified on several children throughout the school building. And my child was presenting with these said symptoms. This unidentified rash was originally found on a student Wednesday, September 27th, and none of the parents in the classroom were notified of the possible concern this rash was serious and contagious. It wasn't until Tuesday, October 3rd, that I found out while picking my child up from school and taking him to the doctor that he had contracted hand, foot, and mouth disease from the classroom. As you could imagine, I was highly upset and disappointed. It was the executive director of school and community relations who was unaware of this outbreak as well and offered her sincere apologies and stated her staff would be receiving a training. It wasn't until October 4th that a notice of the outbreak was finally sent out roughly around 5 p.m. to everyone, which was yesterday. This occurred an entire week after the unidentifiable rash of concern was noticed on that student, which is a huge delay and disconnect found amongst staff and district employees to parents of this school district. According to the school district standards, the district is supposed to act in loco parentis. Teachers, administrators, and other staff all act in place of the parent when we send our children to the school for 30+ hours throughout the week and should always have our child's best interest. The failure to keep parents informed of what's happening at the school with our children is not within their best interest, and the lack of communication can put our entire community in danger. If something of this nature wasn't communicated, then what else isn't being communicated to us parents, I may ask. So how do we move forward with ensuring the lack of communication, delayed notice, and delayed follow-up of unknown illnesses in children are prevented, besides having a training? Yes, there is a policy for control of casual contact disease that you all do have. However, policy 8450 does not include the process of informing parents in a timely manner, as well as a proper protocol or process for handling any illness, including unidentified ones that arise within the schools. The policy lacks follow-up of confirming unidentified illnesses, classroom sanitation, school bus sanitation, and so much more. I'm not here to point the finger, but I do want to raise awareness in order to prevent any further incidents like this in the future. I personally feel the policy needs to be reviewed and maybe amended to the school policy may need to take place because a training to staff just isn't enough. Written policies will ensure that staff and administrators
Your
will
3-minute limit. It's up to the board if they want you to give you an extension or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm almost done. Written policies to the staff and administrators will adhere to said policies. And as a nurse of 10 years, I don't think taking health issues should be taken lightly. I would like to be notified with written notice how we can plan to move forward together and how we can mediate to keep staff, students, and families safe in the near future. Thank you.
For your comments. Definitely have to do a better job with that. So, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I just want to say, someone will definitely follow up with you within 24 hours. But I can't disagree with anything that you have stated, as well. I also will share that some of the specificity is probably in the guidelines, but still with that, we gotta make sure that we do things in a timely fashion. So I cannot disagree with you at all.
All right. Next is 5.01, our consent agenda. And we should have this in our agenda notes. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion presented by Mr. Lippert, seconded by Ms. Maxson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch.
Any comments or questions? Okay, next is approved 4-1, or 4-0, sorry for missing one. 4-0, so this motion has passed. Next is our superintendent's report. We have 4 items, so I'll let Dr. Johnson present this.
Good evening, Board Vice President and Board members. Actually, this evening, there's only 3 things that need to be voted on. I just wanted to make sure that I shared this document again, and also make sure that you know that you do have access to add or change or anything of that nature. So we'll make sure that this is on every week, any of the community engagement activities that we have going on, so that you know who will be present out in the community from the leadership team. Under 6.02, we ask of your approval of the following contracts to best support the students' needs in the district. Under 6.03, we ask of your approval of the additional hours. I believe last year, a question came up, Mr. Liver, where you asked what would happen if he needed some more. We said we would bring it back to the table should he go over. So he did go over the additional hours in order to complete that video. That was absolutely amazing. And we, just by the way, we did share that with all of the 4 municipalities as well as our local clergy to be able to have that opportunity to be able to share that. And then under 6.04, we ask of your approval of those, the handbook. We had taken that off previously. We're asking of your approval for that, the final changes and anything in regards to the 23-24 student handbook.
Okay. As stated, 6.01 is just the community engagement calendar, so 6.02. We have a motion to approve the service contracts as presented.
Motion to approve.
So this is 6.02?
Yeah.
Okay, second.
All right. Motion of, first motion by Ms. Macklin, second by Mr. Lifter. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch, Mr. Lippert.
Yes.
4-0, motion passed. Number 6.03, motion for approval of additional hours for developing the promotional video as presented.
question is after the motion, you make the motion, any questions may be called.
Motion to approve the additional hours for the development review.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lifford, seconded by Ms. Macklin. Do we have any questions or comments?
Just to clarify, he's already done this, correct? So we're just kind of approving it so that we can pay him for additional. Okay. Video is fantastic.
Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Lifford,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. 7.0, or 6.04, motion to approve amended parent-student handbooks for the 2023-2024 school year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Macklin, seconded by Mr. Lifford. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Lifford,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
and Mrs. Turner Birch.
Motion passes 4-0. Next on the agenda, we move on to our treasurer report. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Armstrong.
Board Vice President, Mr. Akins, and board members, I have 4 items on the agenda tonight that I'm seeking approval for. The first item is 2 service contracts, one to Danielle Pratt for consulting services with the treasurer's office, not to exceed 250 hours. And then the second one for Frontline Technology Groups is another component to our financial planning program. And then the second item would be our student activities budget, purpose and goal statements. That is another, we talked about those before, more clubs turning in their goals. The third item is our purchase orders, then and nows, again, a regular item that we see on the board agenda. And I actually only have 3 items for approval. Actually, there is another item on this. And then the 4th item is the second reading and approval of the credit card policy and guideline changes.
All right, thank you. We'll take these individually. 7.01, the motion to approve the policies and administrative guidelines as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Macklin, seconded by Mr. Lifford. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Lifford,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is 7.02, motion to approve service contracts as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Macklin, seconded by Mr. Lifford. Do we have any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Okay, that's okay.
So I see that we accepted, Danielle's resignation and consent agenda. So what are we hiring, what type of consulting services are we hiring?
So we are hiring her to cover while we are filling the position. She's gonna help us with open enrollment that's coming up. She's gonna help us with the conversion with our third-party administrator and also with our ACA reporting and also, again, training the replacement. So she's providing that coverage, so there's continuity in her position, but she cannot continue at a full-time capacity. So she agreed to stay on and help us with the transition.
All right. Any more comments, questions? All right, right, roll call?
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch.
Motion passes 4-0. Next, 7.03, we have a motion to approve student activity budgets and purpose and goal statements as presented.
Motion to approve the purchase order as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lippert, seconded by Ms. Macklin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is 7.04, purchase orders. Do we have a motion to approve the purchase orders as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Macklin, seconded by Mr. Lippert. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch.
Motion passes 4-0. All right, and that concludes tonight's meeting. I do want to announce we have our next meeting in 2 weeks on the 19th. Yeah, I could not remember the date. October 19th.
I have raffle tickets for the Holly Ball, which will be in December, they're $20 a ticket or $6,400, I think it is. It's a real nice event. They have a lot of, things you can win. You can come out, let your hair down, enjoy your friends, eat a little bit, do whatever. So I hope to see you there. If you need tickets, you can contact me or anybody in the foundation. As for scholarships.
You know, I'm here on our monthly acknowledgements of our national awareness. And October is a month of a lot of different awarenesses. So I thought it was very, very important to shed light. So of course, the number one is we are going pink all month for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. For those who are in the fight right now, those who have survived the fight, and just prayers and some comfort around those who have not, who did lose the fight, but their families are still believing for them at this time. So key that this is also National Book Month, and I'm going to speak a little bit on that in a little bit of my report for my legislative space. But with all the book bans going around, I just want to share some light that it's important that it is National Book Month and that we should be inclusive to all of who wants to learn from whatever books that they would like. Mental Illness Awareness Month is very important in this month, and with SEL at the forefront of everything that we are doing a lot in this district to support our students and our families. It is so important to give light to that space. National Dental Hygiene Month. So go ahead and get those cleanings. It's so important for children to get those at the beginning of the year as well. So just an FYI on setting those appointments. And then this one holds special, well, before I get to that one. It's also Bullying Prevention Month and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I really think that both of these being key, because a lot of bullying can expand from domestic violence, and I do want to share a little insight on some research statistics that actually domestic violence and just violence as a whole escalated in 2020 due to the pandemic. However, it has not come down, and it is significantly high. I don't have that percentage, but I want to say somewhere around 60%, which is pretty high. brother. National Down Syndrome Awareness Month. So let's give some space to our children who are in the Down syndrome community. I know my parents have done the buddy walk for years. My brother turned 48 years old. You're talking about a child that didn't even think he was going to live past the age of 2. So just wanted to support my brother Donald with acknowledging National Down Syndrome Awareness Month. So moving into my legislation report, I've been traveling. I told y'all about my Chicago trip. Then I am a part of the OSBA Diversity Equity Committee. And a part of that committee, we put on a workshop in Columbus. And it was all around how do we create more spaces and understanding what true diversity, equity, and inclusion really is. We heard presentations from some students that were not just from the Columbus area, but there was a young man from Canton. But they just kind of spoke to the space of education right now and really provided a student-led voice of understanding of what school districts and school communities should do to support the students in 21st century learning. And I was all like, yes, 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 because a lot of the things that I have said, these students were actually regurgitating the same things. So it's important to listen to our students. And a lot of it had to do with just providing curriculum that is intercultural, making sure belonging was key within that as well, that they're feeling, because our idea of what safety maybe is a whole different idea, and as I think Brandon spoke to the comforting part, right? Making sure it's a space, I spoke about brave spaces, but not just a safe space, but a brave and empowered space. And not just for our students, but for our families as well. It should be both ways. Once again, when adult behaviors change, student outcomes prevail. So I thought that was very enlightening to just hear the students speak to a lot of those same things that I have actually tried to put in place too. On top of that, one of our state board representatives is also there in this space, and she's going to bring light to there was a resolution to condemn racism and to advance equity and opportunity for Black students, Indigenous students, and students of color. And this resolution that the state board went into, adopt the following preamble and resolution, and I'm just going to briefly read it. As our nation grapples with the hard truths of racism and inequality, we are listening with broken hearts and engaging with determined spirits. We acknowledge that Ohio's education system has not been immune to these problems, and while we earnestly strive to correct them, we have a great deal of work left to do. Whereas the Ohio Strategic Plan for Education 2019 to 2024, Each Child, Our Future, adopted by a resolution of the State Board of Education in June 2018, begins with the vision that in Ohio, each child is challenged to discover and learn, prepared to pursue a fulfilling post-high school path, and empowered to become a resilient, lifelong learner who contributes to society. And whereas equity is our plan's greatest imperative and number one principle, and whereas profound disparities between Black, Indigenous, and people of color or BIPOC students and their white peers exist in all parts of the Ohio education system, and whereas gaps between test performance of Black, Indigenous, and people of color students and their white peers have been observed since Ohio began disaggregating the data, and whereas progress to close these gaps have been uneven and unsatisfactory, and whereas a culturally responsive curriculum reflects the history and background of all students and empowers students to value all cultures, not just their own, and whereas research has shown that a culturally responsive curriculum can motivate students of color to a higher level of academic achievement, and in many cases increase the graduation rate of previously disengaged students. And whereas Black male students lag far behind their white counterparts in several measures of educational attainment, including graduation rates, which keep gainful employment out of reach. And whereas starting as early as preschool, Black male students are affected disproportionately by suspensions, expulsions, and zero-tolerance discipline policies in schools. And whereas separate but equal is no longer the law of the land, but systemic inequity in education has relegated millions of students of color to under-resourced, struggling schools. And whereas significant gaps between the performance of Black students compared to their white peers exist even in generously resourced schools. And whereas the State Board of Education believes that public schools are fundamental to our democratic society, and we must be dedicated to equity and thoughtful teaching of future citizens that racism, bigotry, and hatred have no place. And whereas the path to equity begins with a deep understanding of the history of inequalities and inhumanity and how they have come to impact current society. Therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education condemns in the strongest possible terms white supremacy culture, hate speech, hate crimes, and violence in the service of hatred. These immoral ideologies and actions deserve no place in our country, state, and school system. And be it further resolved that the starting point of our work in racial equity must be reflection and internal examination, whereby the board will look for ways to engage our members in open and courageous conversations on racism and inequity. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education shall offer training to board members to identify our own implicit biases so that we can perform our duties to the citizens of Ohio without racial bias. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education shall require training for all state employees and contractors working with the Department of Education to identify their own implicit biases so that they can perform their duties to the citizens of Ohio without unconscious racial bias. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education directs the Ohio Department of Education to re-examine the academic content standards and model curriculums to make recommendations to the State Board of Education as necessary to eliminate bias and ensure that racism and the struggle for equality are accurately addressed. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education directs the Ohio Department of Education to continue the practice of ensuring all state-administered tests are free of racial bias. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education strongly recommends that all Ohio school districts begin a reflection and internal examination of their own involving all members of their school community to examine all facets of the school operations with a special emphasis on curriculum, hiring practices, staff development practices, and student discipline, suspension, expulsion. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education directs the Ohio Department of Education to provide support for school districts' reflection and internal examination, including identifying and sharing curricular models and resources, promoting sessions to allow districts to share and collaborate on their actions and to share progress in implementing these changes. And be it further resolved that the State Board of Education will be led by our guiding document, Each Child, Our Future, and advocate for it as a framework for developing policy and action. I certify that the above is true and a correct copy of the action taken by the State Board of Education at its meeting on July 14th, 2020. And this was by Paulo DeMar, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, who is no longer the superintendent. However, this was to go in effect through the year of 2024. And so this is the focus of our state and how our community should be understanding where we are as a whole and how we support our entire school community as a whole, together in working towards the betterment of each child who are our future in society. So stepping from that, I also went to Washington, D.C. for a lobbying and advocacy conference, which it was a wonderful opportunity. I love Washington, D.C. because of the historic values, but also I just love just the space of just being able to learn more about lobbying and what is entailed with contacting your representatives. I have done such on behalf of our school district on many of the House bills and Senate bills that have currently been coming through the State House. So I have definitely sent in testimony and whatnot at various times, but I'm encouraging everyone. It's not just an elected official's space to do so. It's the community. everyone, reach out to your legislators, whether you voted for them or you did not. We are to hold everyone accountable that is elected and or who is serving our community and our students as a whole. It was, and what's unique about our district is we sit in District 11, Congressional District 11. However, because we are a community of 4 communities, Oakwood and Walton Hills sit in District 7, Congressional District. So we're kind of unique because everybody does not have that. They typically only have one congressional leader. So 11th Congressional, Bedford and Bedford Heights is Congresswoman Shontel Brown, and the 7th Congressional representative name is Max Miller. So I was not able to contact his office, but I was able to get connected with Congresswoman Shontel Brown, and we briefly were able to speak. It was a lot going on because, of course, they were facing a shutdown. So we weren't able to have a long conversation, but it was just very important and key to even have the ability to do that. And I didn't make it over to the Senate side to try to get to any of the senators, but even in the conference space, we had an opportunity to engage with one of the representatives out of Florida and kind of just hear the perspective of what's going on. Fortunately, the shutdown did not happen, but it was truly awesome that I was able to, I had never been to the Capitol. I've always gone to DC and been to different spaces, but never been to the Capitol. So it was awesome just to be inside, but I was able to sit in the gallery, and I was watching the debate like such you see on C-SPAN, so to actually sit in the space and see them going back and forth was pretty cool. And then what I was told was that they were going to be coming in for a vote, and I was able to actually watch as all the representatives are coming in, and it was just, if you haven't done it, you should do it. It was just amazing just to be in the space and to learn so much just being there. So knowing that I took a lot of what Bedford has to offer, took it to DC on Capitol Hill, and knowing that Bedford was there, not just Ohio, but Bedford. And we had about 30 people from Ohio, period, that went. Ohio, Mississippi, and South Carolina were like one of the 3 biggest states who were there. But I met people from Wyoming, which I've never been there, but never would thought I'd meet anybody from there. So just to engage across nationally, which was a little bit bigger than the Chicago trip that I took to engage nationally, was just amazing and awesome time. So one day I'm gonna be allowed to use but I'm already doing it, right? So the experience of being able to be there, thank you to the district for allowing me to be the legislative liaison as I am delving myself in these spaces to make sure that we are holding our elected officials accountable and understanding where we are with our schools, specifically in Ohio. And one of the things, and I will share quickly, one of the things that are important for advocacy is IDEA, is that we were told that it's not fully funded in the national budget. And we are to be reaching out to our representatives to say, hey, fully fund the national budget. I believe it's supposed to be fully funded at 40%. They have yet to do that, and it's like only 12. So just imagine how many resources we could have for our students with disabilities, with more, being able to provide more resources for them if it was fully funded to the full capacity. So just a key little thing about what I did. It was some other platform, but I know I'm taking up quite a bit of time anyway, so I don't want to take more from your evening, but that's all I have for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Before we close, I did want to just make a couple of quick announcements. I want to congratulate our homecoming king and queen this past Friday. They had a great ceremony, and it was good to see that both of our king and queen were recognized in our high school video that was shown on the screen. So I want to congratulate them. Also, our Bedford football team won our homecoming game as well on this past Friday. They beat the Garfield Heights Tigers 21-2. So we were able to win with that as well as our homecoming court as well. Our Bulldogs, sorry. And then lastly, our, just a quick announcement that just came in today, actually. One of our sophomores, Hashay Commons, he ran his way into the record books this week when he placed first in the 54th annual George Cross Invitational Open event, posting a time of 20.10 in the 5K. He brought home both a medal and a ton of respect for our BHS program, so I want to congratulate him. And then also we have 2 games tonight. Our boys soccer traveled to Thomas Harvey High School to play, as well as our girls varsity soccer traveled to Cuyahoga Heights High School to play. Both games are at 7 p.m., so we hope that our Bearcats can snatch a win with that. Lastly, next week, Monday, on October 9th, we're having our second community forum. This will be where our community can hear about our bond initiative and can ask questions directly from the administration to find out exactly what the plan is and how they should vote for this levies, or for the bond, sorry. So I just wanted to let you know it's going to be October 9th at 6 p.m. at Bedford High School in our NLGI, which is on the north side of the building. And there will be food, so please come out.
The freshmen played today too. I don't know what the score was, but the freshmen had a game as well against Maple today at 4:30. I don't know the result of that, but and since we're talking about forums, the League of Women Voters will have their candidate forum and Board of Education forum on October 16th. 6 p.m. All 4 municipalities will be included, and it will be located at the Bedford Heights Community Center. Educate yourself on the issues and the candidates.
Thank you. That concludes tonight's meeting and agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Turner-Bird, seconded by Ms. Macklin. All right, roll call.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mr. Lipford.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned.